So how's it going there? It's we haven't talked in a few weeks, so let's do a little bit of a catch up first. I was in New York City myself, I guess 2 weekends ago.
Wait, I'm not allowed to say I'm doing great, Paul?
Yes, well, you're always doing great. I would take that for. I assume that's always the case, unless otherwise. But I'm going to talk.
Anyway, tell me about New
Yeah,
York.
I'm
Go
going to
ahead.
talk about myself here because we're tired of talking about you. Just kidding. Yeah, no, I was in New York myself 2 weeks ago with my wife. We took off for a weekend. Well, I guess about 4 days to experience autumn in New York, and it was a fantastic, awesome trip. Loved every second of it. Have you?
Every second? Like there wasn't anything that went wrong
No, it
or
was
weird?
awesome. It was awesome. I don't think there was anything that went wrong.
Well, you are going to share a little story that I think indicates that maybe something was a bit off.
Yeah, well, some adventures here and there, which is always good. A good vacation is when you always got a couple of funny stories to tell.
Of course, and that's when stories like that generally happen is on vacations and things like
Absolutely,
that.
yeah. The highlight, though, I got to say, Billy Joel in concert at Madison Square Garden. Absolutely phenomenal.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
That was kind of the main reason you went down there?
Yeah, that was. Yeah, it was. Yeah, that's why that was our motivation for going. My wife sort of booked this trip. That was the reason why, was because, a Billy Joel concert was truly sort of a quote unquote a bucket list experience that she wanted to do.
In New York or just in general?
Well, in general, but specifically at Madison Square Garden, because that's sort of his home turf, I suppose.
Yeah, Long Island guy.
Yeah. And to experience Madison Square Garden, which is one of the most famous sports and concert venues, certainly in the U.S., maybe if not in the world. He certainly didn't disappoint, that's for sure. It was, he worked his ass off out there. It was a 2.5 hour concert, which you don't see very much these days. Most acts are pretty much done within, hour and a half to 2 hours.
I saw Billy Joel and Elton John together in Toronto about 12 years ago.
Oh, the dueling pianos, I think that was the name of the concert.
Was it called that?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
So they were pretty good, but I did think that they were kind of running out of steam a bit in terms of their quality. And of course it was two of them, whereas you saw just Billy Joel by himself. So maybe he more rose to the occasion.
Yeah, like you wonder if you have two sort of headline big stars that are performing, you wonder if that does change the dynamics of the concert, whether or not, if they have to kind of like share the stage, does that take them out of their, their comfort zone, or does that, lessen the impact of the concert? I'm actually kind of surprised to hear that it wasn't as impactful as you thought it was going to be. Now, how long was the concert? Like, how long did they go on for?
Oh, it was probably a long concert. I don't remember. I don't remember it being 2.5 hours,
Okay.
but it was, it seemed like about what a concert should be.
Yeah. And you wonder, like, certain concerts that are done on the road versus a concert that is sort of, I guess, a residency, which Billy Joel does sort of have a residency, I suppose, at Madison Square, where every month he puts on a show at Madison Square.
He does.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah.
So it's almost like a Vegas thing.
It is, yeah. Yeah, he does one show a month, and they sold out. Like, I think he's, once a month, and I think he sold out until the February concert.
That's an interesting concept that you almost... Vegas, you certainly hear that. Celine Dion sets up shop for a period of time and people can go see her. But I've never really heard that for a musician like a Billy Joel doing that in a city where he sets up and has that's a really interesting, that's something I've never heard of before.
Yeah, because when you think of Vegas residencies, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think they're there for a shorter period of time, maybe a couple of months, maybe. And
I think some of them have like acts that go on for years.
Yeah, I think like Celine Dion was there for like over 5 years. And I'm not sure how many concerts they do in a week. It could be almost every day, in which case, yeah, those would be, I guess, a little repetitive. And from a from the artist standpoint, doing a show every single day, day in and day out, same venue, I would figure that would be a little bit draining as well. With what Billy Joel has, I think that's pretty much a really good setup in the sense that if he's only doing maybe, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 concerts a month, one of which being at Madison Square, that kind of keeps him fresh. He's not being burnt out. Keep in mind that he is 73 years old and he's still got it. He still looked great on stage.
Well, that's good.
So
I'm glad you enjoyed your trip there. And I saw you did a few sightseeing things like the Empire State Building and other stuff. I like New York a lot. I've been there quite a bit because I've worked for 2 companies that had their head offices there. And but since COVID, I mean, I haven't been to New York City in 5 years. Well, maybe 3 years, 3 and a bit.
Yeah, it hasn't really changed much at all. I guess my observations, I was there maybe 4 years ago, and I know a lot of cities have changed a little bit because of everything that's been going on with COVID. I recall you mentioning a few months ago when you went to San Francisco that it seemed a little bit dirtier, or maybe a few more homeless people than you recall seeing from the time prior.
Yeah, San Fran was terrible. Why are we talking about San Fran?
No, it's because I was going to mention that, my observations of New York is that, depending on what part of the city you're in, it was maybe a little bit dirtier or more homeless people than I recall seeing from last time. But I guess a lot of cities, and probably cities like Toronto have experienced that as well. But anyway, that's kind of a topic in itself. We can tackle that another time. But you've been pretty busy yourself. We've talked in the past. Your property that is now up and running. You've your Airbnb. So
yes.
Fill us in. What's new on that?
Yeah. So the Airbnb that I had been talking about on the last episode, that I've got a property just east of Toronto here. And it's now officially up on Airbnb as of Thursday. I believe it hit. It's also on a few other platforms, but it's specific. It's a short-term rental. That's the terminology you use for what I'm doing. It's a duplex. It's a duplex with 2 units in it. So there's actually 2 Airbnbs or 2 short-term rentals there. And after several weeks of getting it up and running and ready, and all the work that went into that, there was a contractor on site who had to do some infrastructure improvements like HVAC and put a wall up to create a second bedroom in one of the units, fixed a bunch of weird, quirky things in the property, like light switches that would turn on closet lights instead of the room light. Like just quirky little things that it cost a lot more than I was planning to originally. So short-term rentals, guys, for those of you who, I know this isn't a real estate podcast, but short-term rental properties are a lot of work to set up. Sometimes a few times I've said, maybe I should have just gone long-term rental, but anyway, it's set up and it's, I'm really happy with how it turned out.
Okay. So question for you on, you mentioned the differences, short-term versus a long-term rental. So short-term rental, I guess, is it the expectation that it would be more of a presentable property, sort of more like a quote unquote, like a hotel type of atmosphere, whereas a long-term, you can maybe get away with a few more deficiencies, or like maybe explain that aspect?
Yeah. So with Airbnb or short-term rental, guest experience is extremely important. So if a guest has a situation, so you want to have things that make guests happy, and then you want to avoid things that would bother a guest. So it's extremely important because you get reviews right after someone stays there. So, and people look at reviews, whereas a long-term rental, you don't have that kind of feedback necessarily, unless someone wanted to check up on you as a landlord and ask what was that person like as a landlord, which I think is pretty rare. So it's all about guest experience. So you have to make sure it's top notch.
So Airbnb, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's almost like you're creating like a hotel kind of environment then, like a bed and breakfast, but without the breakfast, that type of thing.
Well, I wouldn't say a hotel is anything like a bed and breakfast without a breakfast. Like the Airbnbs are, I would say none of them are really anything like a hotel unless you have maybe a condo type unit that feels like you're going, in a lobby and up an elevator, but there's no maid that's knocking on the door in the morning. There's there is no lobby that you're passing through or any kind of there is services that you would contact the host if there was a problem or something like that. But Airbnbs can be quite unique. It's anything from a full house that you're renting out to a room in a house to I've seen like people with trailers as Airbnbs. And I've seen if you go on Airbnb and search around, they'll have what they call unique experiences. So it can be things like caves, castles. Those are the two I saw anyway that were sort of unique. So I think that's the point of Airbnb is it's more like people that don't want to stay in a traditional hotel. This is an option.
Mm-hmm. So have you had people stay yet?
Not yet.
Okay.
We have had a couple of inquiries that have come in for people looking to do medium-term rentals, which, see, during this time of year, especially in this part of the world where it's cold in the wintertime, Airbnb is at its least popular starting from September through to April. So I didn't really have any control over the timing of this because, I bought the place in July and I just couldn't really control when I wanted to do short-term rental. So I got it up and running as soon as possible, but we are looking at a medium-term rental potentially as an option, which is anything more than 30 days.
I see. Yeah. And I guess sometimes those medium-term rentals can be good as well, because that gives you a little bit of stability and some, I guess, a steady stream of income, especially, as you said, coming into the winter season when it's not going to be as much high demand for a place like Trenton.
Right.
And
yeah, well, we don't know. Like, yeah, it's not a summer. It's not a
winter
beach
area. It's not a winter
or
destination. It's more a summer place where you would go.
But the good news is that unlike other parts of the province, like if it was a cottage property on a lake, that might not attract people in the wintertime. Whereas my property isn't like that. I'm not really a vacation property. I'm a multi-purpose property. I'm a temporary workspace. I'm a temporary living arrangements while you're transitioning into something, like maybe people that are moving out while they're getting a reno done and need a place to stay.
Mm-hmm.
People that are working in the area for a few weeks, maybe their employers brought them into the area. The military base is close, so there's potential for personnel that are coming from other provinces that there isn't room on the Air Force Base that they might stay. We've already had some dialogue with them about it.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's what we're probably looking to do, is to get it into a midterm or medium term rental scenario, like 1 month to 3 month type thing until Airbnb season starts picking up in April.
And I gather through all of this, if nothing else, this is a huge learning opportunity for you. You've been, well, I know that you've been looking at the real estate aspect for well over a year now. And our trip that we did back in Windsor, our Windsor trip that we did back last March, that was for that purpose, was for scouting out potential properties. So been a long time coming, and you've been through a lot and dealt with a lot of different contractors and third parties. So you could probably write a book on your experiences there.
Well, yeah, it does put mileage on in terms of experience, and there are some things I would perhaps do differently the next time around. Like I would probably give a lot of second thought to doing Airbnb again. Not necessarily that I wouldn't have done it, but I would have a lot more knowledge of what's involved. And, some of it's, you got to just try it out, right? Like the numbers when I was figuring on doing this suggested that it would do well. And then you can only really know that. And after it's like opening any kind of a business, you can do all your research, and then ultimately it's going to be, what are the customers do the customers come, and what do they think when they experience your business? So, it's been a great learning experience and just more mileage on the real estate journey.
Yeah, and the thing too is not to panic and just realize that it's a learning experience, and it will continue to be over the next couple of months, especially when you're dealing with.
Do you
this.
think I should panic?
No, but hey, a lot of people would be like, "Oh, geez, I don't have anybody in my house yet. What the hell what have I done?"
Well, it's been 3 days.
Yeah, well, there you go. But hey, some people would be freaking out that they don't have something lined up. So, but you're Mr. Calm and Collected, so I have no worries about you.
Steady at the tiller.
Yes, for sure.
Paul, normally I talk about, when we've talked about my neighbor in the past, we talk about, we had the ice rink story a couple of years ago. Now I have a little story to tell you about the neighbor on the other side of the property.
I feel almost disappointed that my neighbors are nowhere near as interesting as yours. I don't have any neighbor stories to tell. All my neighbors are normal. What's going on in your neighborhood?
You know what? The ones that you think are normal probably aren't.
Yeah.
But I mean, I would say my neighbors are generally fairly normal people, but occasionally there's a little quirk that appears. And it was yesterday that I had noticed when I drove back when I was coming back from helping my son get some hockey equipment. We pulled into the driveway, and I noticed that my neighbor next door had his car was propped up off the ground. And I'd like to say it was up on jacks or it was up on ramps or something like that. But what this guy had done was he had actually propped his car up with two snow tires had been set up, holding the back of his car up. I'm actually going to send you a picture so that you can see it. Yeah, I just sent you the photo.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now. Yeah, it's a bit strange as to how to jack up your car.
So you got we're looking at a vehicle here that's got two tires. I think they're his winter tires that have been stacked on top of one another, of which he's propped up the back of the car on. And then the front looks like, it does have some kind of ramp or something. I can't really tell.
Yeah, it looks like there's a jack on the front driver's side from the looks of it.
Yeah, which is a bit odd.
Yeah.
And, I saw that he was kind of not quite underneath it, but he was looking underneath it when I showed up, and he decided to explain to me what he was doing. And he said, I was driving the other day and I heard this rattling sound, and I wanted to get a better idea of why the car was making this rattling sound. And he said, what my idea here is I want to prop the car up and then be able to accelerate the vehicle.
Oh God.
And see if it makes the rattling sound when I accelerate or if I'm not on the ground. And I mean, in my mind, I'm thinking this is absolutely crazy. I'm totally picturing the Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
Yeah. So I was just going to say that.
Window.
Yeah.
And I just had this feeling of like, you know what? I don't want to be involved in this.
Yeah.
And he also happened to ask me, do you know a mechanic who is maybe a friend of yours that won't rip people off? And, that's another thing we could maybe talk about someday, is this assumption that every mechanic out there is evil, trying to rip people off.
Yeah.
I said, no, I just take it up to the garage, up the way. And then I kind of left him to his devices. I just didn't really want to be involved in this. And then I came back about 20 minutes later. My wife and I were working in the yard, and he said, hey, do you mind? It looks like my battery is dead, and before I bring it down off the jacks, I want to try to boost the battery. Would you mind pulling your car up beside me? And now this meant actually driving onto his lawn to be able to access, because he's only got a single car lane or driveway. So I was very hesitant. And he said, and if you're nervous about it, you don't have to. And I'm like, I don't mind trying to boost the car. But in the background of all this, I think you're insane for what you're trying to do here. But fine. So I drove up. Sure enough, we boosted the car. and the battery, I don't know how he drained his battery, but we had both thought, well, maybe it was a safety feature that if your car's off the ground, that it stops working,
Yeah.
which maybe isn't a bad idea, right? You know, if a car ever got like tipped over and was in a ditch, it wants to be able to disable the vehicle from running. I don't know. But anyway, we got his car running, and I parked my car back on my driveway. And I said to him, I got a question for you. Let's say it doesn't rattle. And then he decided, he got in the front seat and he starts accelerating. The wheels are spinning and
Yeah,
this thing's
at
up
that
on
point you're
jacks.
envisioning some horrible grisly accident is just
Oh,
about to
for God,
unfold in
yeah.
front of your eyes.
Exactly. I said, well, I got to ask you this question. Like, okay, you want this information that if let's say it doesn't rattle and make this noise when you're up on the jacks, what are you going to do with that information?
Well, yeah, exactly. Okay, so if it rattles, then what? You still got to take it to your mechanic who you feel is a crook. So what are you hoping
Yeah.
to accomplish here?
And so I asked him, and he said, well, then I'll try to fix it. And then he says, my father-in-law fixes stuff all the time, so why can't I? And then he proceeds to pull out the old Chilton's manual with it's like Honda from 2015 to 2020 or whatever, like he's going to go look up how to fix. And this is clearly not a guy who knows anything about how to fix vehicles.
Planning on looking up the YouTube videos, what to do if there's a knocking noise in your car?
Everything turned out okay, but I could tell his wife was out there, had this absolute look of concern on her face about the whole thing. And I said to my wife, I'm so worried this is going to end badly. And I just don't want to be around to see it. Like, I could hear him revving the engine from the backyard and from my backyard. And I just imagined hearing that, like, and then smash. Like,
yeah.
So
help,
anyway,
help.
My comment to him was, sometimes things like this are better left in the hands of professionals. Like, you've got, anyways, it was very odd. And I just had to share that story from the other side of
All
the
right.
house.
So yeah, there wasn't so much weird behavior, not like what we talked about a couple months ago with, your neighbor and the hockey rink in the backyard. But yeah, it's an example where people trying to be cheap. I think what it comes down to. If you have no expertise or no knowledge in a particular area, don't try to pretend that you can fix something. As you said, take it to a professional, because you gotta pay for the experience and the knowledge. You can't put a price on that. So you got to find a mechanic that you feel comfortable with, and not all of them are crooks. And
no, they're not.
Just realize that it's going to cost some money, but at least it gets done. Simple as that. Don't kill yourself in your driveway. It's not worth it. And it can traumatize your neighbors too. Tomorrow, being October 24th, is the municipal elections here in the province of Ontario. So municipal elections, for those who may be out of country, just so you gain a context as to what that involves, it's basically your local level of government. So that would be mayor, regional and local councillors, school board trustees, that type of thing. I voted myself. I took advantage of the advanced polls. But yeah, I just want to bring this up because when it comes to voter turnouts with elections, here in Canada, typically for federal and provincial elections, voter turnout usually is above 50%. Between 50 and 60%. Obviously, a lot can depend on the individual election itself if there's a big issue that sort of motivates people to get out to the polls. But with municipal elections, voter turnout is extremely low. And the municipality where I live in Whitby, the last election, which was 4 years ago, I believe the voter turnout I read was about like 28%, which is terrible. I can't believe that there's that few people that are engaged in municipal politics, because it's something that affects you the most in terms of, your taxation, roads and infrastructure, investment within projects within your local communities, such as like police stations, community halls, that type of thing, social
Yeah.
services, sports facilities. And I scratch my head every 4 years wondering, why aren't people more engaged in municipal elections? And it's one of those things where, okay, it doesn't get the media coverage that it should be. But yeah, it involves doing a little bit of research and just taking 10 minutes of your time and just having an idea as to what some of these candidates stand for. So yeah, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think that, yeah, you're right. Most people do take municipal elections less seriously. I think a big part of that is that with federal and provincial elections, it's in the news a lot more. So you're forced to see it and hear it, and with municipal, that it's never going to be on the front because municipal is split out by, there's hundreds of different municipal people out there. Whereas with federal and provincial, it's kind of one leader that you're seeing a lot and trying to hear what the issues are. So I think that's the biggest reason why you don't see the turnout, because every area is different and you just don't see the light being shone on it the same way as you do. So I agree. The issues in a municipal election are going to be far more relevant to you, and that's it. That's just the thing. So am I voting? I know the local councillor here who does a pretty good job, Paul Ainsley, of being out there and in the public. But beyond that, I don't know anybody else that's running. So I'm I guess guilty as charged in a lot of ways. I don't know anything about anybody other than him.
Mm-hmm. Well, do some research there, my friend. So yeah, I guess the public service announcement here to all of our listeners in Ontario: get out and vote, please. I hope you vote. Because yeah, by the time you listen to this episode, I'm sure the election day will have come and gone. But I hope people do get out and vote and do it for next time. And yeah, just keep in mind that it's important.
All right, you were in New York City, as you mentioned at the top of the show, and you found your driving with the Uber drivers. So was it an interesting experience? Was it overall, or was it just one particular driver?
More so, I guess, one particular driver, but all in all, like, just traffic in New York City. Oh my God, I would never ever drive in New York City. I would never want to take my car into New York City because I'd probably get beaten to crap. So this particular incident, this was the Uber driver that was taking us from LaGuardia Airport into Midtown Manhattan, where our hotel was situated. But yeah, my goodness, the drive into the city, this guy was almost borderline reckless. Like
weaving in and out of traffic.
In and out, cutting people off, flipping the finger to people on multiple occasions. One of those things like shaking of the fist, like angry driving, that type of thing. Like, yeah, it was just weird. And it's something that, well, I guess if I don't drive a lot in downtown Toronto, I try to avoid that. I seldom have to drive in like the heart of downtown Toronto. Any driving I do for work is sort of on the outskirts of the city. Mm-hmm. But even then, even from our experiences driving in Toronto, it's nothing like New York City. There's so many, obviously, way more one-way streets. There's a lot of blocked roadways, one lane, a lot of closures. Like it's a difficult city to drive in, even at the best of times.
All right. So with this Uber guy, like, you have the ability to rate him right after the drive is over. Did you do that?
Yeah, like he did fine. Like he got us to where we needed to be. And he was a polite guy. Like, it's nothing. I can't really say anything bad towards him. I was just a general.
Well, he was driving erratically and giving the finger to people,
but it was it was just more of a general observation of his driving habits, or what.
Did you feel unsafe at any point with this man?
Yes and no. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe.
And you're saying you couldn't rate his driving as in, like, you can't be critical of it?
I forget what I rated him as. I'll be honest. I'm not sure, but I was just in amazement as to, first of all, the aggressiveness of this driver, and also almost the pure skill as well. Like,
so you had a bit of respect.
Yeah, I almost had respect for this guy. Like, man, this guy's a hardened driver. Like, nothing phases this dude whatsoever. driving in New York City, like tough as nails. Like there's
Okay.
like the whole thing. When I was sitting in the back of the car, I'm thinking, the Canadian way of being maybe a little bit overly polite, whereas like, oh, no, you go first. No, you go. No,
Right.
please, after you. That type of thing. That wouldn't fly in New York City. They'd beat you to crap if you did anything like that. It's every man for himself.
My
And
only experience with an Uber driver was that I got picked up by somebody that wasn't my driver.
oh yeah,
Yeah, it was. I was waiting for an Uber driver to come, and then he pulled up and said, "Uber?" And I said, "Yes." And I hopped in, and we realized after that it wasn't actually my driver. He was just a regular cab.
oh yeah. What did he try to take
And
you to some weird place or something?
this was a few years ago, and that's I think why they've really heightened the whole, like, they have to ask you, like, are you Clark, and then you can see that, like, they're supposed to do a little more checking,
Yeah.
or you can do more, and there's more verification on both sides.
Hmm.
So this was yeah, that was quite a few years ago though.
Yeah. Well, when you order one now, you can see the vehicle and the license plate number. So yeah, whenever the car pulls up, I always verify with the license plate number.
Yeah,
Yeah. Whereas
that's
maybe they didn't do that before.
well, and in the old days you used to see, at least in Toronto and I think New York at the time, you saw a lot of regular cabs as Uber drivers
Oh, okay.
that were so you would, I think anyway, that it seems to me in the early days of Uber it was like cab drivers that were just also going on the Uber system, and I think they might have clamped down on that as well.
Well, the message here is that, yeah, don't drive in New York. You got to be a professional to do that.
Well, I'm glad you put your life in the hands of someone else and didn't rent a car and do it yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, MLB playoffs are on, and the pricing to so you were a little bit concerned about pricing that they're charging for what tickets? Were you considering going to a game, I guess,
I
maybe when you
was,
were in New
yeah.
York, or
Well, yeah, actually, well, Toronto and also New York. Yeah, the Blue Jays had, unfortunately, a very short-lived playoff experience. That's a topic in itself.
they did?
Yeah.
Mm,
But yeah, I was looking into, if the Jays had advanced to the divisional series, how much would tickets be? When I was in New York, I also took a look to see what tickets for Yankees would be for the divisional series. Yeah, it's a head scratcher looking at the exorbitant amount that they charge, and I'm just thinking, man, it's price gouging. So keeping in mind that the pricing for Major League playoffs is actually set by Major League Baseball itself. So although maybe the team might have some input, technically the final amount that they charge is mandated or set by Major League Baseball. So
per team, I'm imagining.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
like, New York would have a different price than, say, Toronto for the same series.
possibly, yeah. But either way,
I think so.
it's still going to be expensive no matter which team that you're going to see. Like
Yep.
for a cheap seat, it's going to be well in excess of $100. And, I'm just thinking, man, that's got to be price gouging. So, for example, for the Blue Jays, a ticket that would, normally go for, I'm just seeing it here. My neighbor, who's a season ticket holder, he had sent me some prices here to put something into context. So, okay, 500 level seats for the Blue Jays that regular season would go for $22.50 each. Those tickets in the wild card game were increased to $85. If they had gone to the ALCS, they would have been $107. So, and that's just face value. Never mind what you would pay if you went through the secondary market, like
Sure.
one of those.
Which is kind of not really.
Yeah,
Can't really.
you can't really base it on that because you can't control the aftermarket on tickets. But either way, the point being is that, okay, $22.50 regular season, American League Championship Series, $107. Like, since when is it like a 500% increase in pricing? Like, where else do you see that? Where it's like, yeah, I would expect to pay more for playoffs. Maybe $22 seats. I could understand $50.
But it's a business, right?
It's a business,
so
yeah.
why shouldn't a business be able to charge what the going rate would be for something? Like, if you ran the
Yeah.
business and someone said to you, you can't charge this much, like, wouldn't that upset you?
No, but it's this here is an example of greed. Like, why? Why is it 107? How can you get away
Because
with?
that's what people will pay.
Yeah, I know. People will pay that, I suppose. And yeah, the people have paid that. I think it was a sellout crowd for, for all of the Jays playoff games, and I'm sure if they advanced it would have continued to have been sellouts, but
And
yeah.
doesn't this guarantee potentially the success of the team down the road? The more money they collect, the more money they have, and that perhaps they can put a better product on the field
Mhm.
by getting to the playoffs, making more money, and hopefully
Yeah.
putting that money back into maybe spending on the team or the facility.
Yeah.
Look, they're spending $300 million this year to upgrade the Rogers Center next year. So if this money is
Mhm.
being taken advantage of for the purposes of improving the team, improving the park, it's a capitalist economy. Like what are you expecting?
I'm expecting it to not be so exorbitantly priced. So yeah, I expect to pay more in the playoffs. I'm not arguing that. But when it's a 500% increase, that I think that's a bit carried away. I just think that's truly taking advantage of people. We talked before about, sports venues, the affordability aspect. Can you afford to take a family of four to a sports event? Yeah, you can afford to take a family of four to a regular season major league game if you're
Some
paying.
people can.
Yeah, well, generally, if you're paying $22 a seat, most people can. For a Toronto Maple Leaf game, which we've talked about in the past, cheap seats are like $125. Yeah, the average family of four probably wouldn't spend that kind of money. And
Nor would they have access to be able to
yeah,
buy the tickets. That's the other thing.
yeah. But
You
now,
know,
now you're looking at Major League Baseball playoffs where over $100 a ticket. Yeah, you took away the affordability aspect. So I don't know.
well, wait till you see World Series pricing. Okay, this is something I heard about the other day on the radio. There was a segment about this. It was about lunch box shaming, and the gist of the story was that kids who bring certain types of lunches to school, and this particular story was mostly about foreign kids, like immigrant kids who came from other countries and would bring their lunch to school. It would be something ethnic that maybe other kids weren't used to seeing. And it might smell a certain way, look a certain way, that the kids were getting ostracized by their fellow classmates because of what they were bringing to school. And they made a really big story on this, and it actually, there's a Wikipedia entry called lunch shaming, I believe. So it's clearly something that's going on out there. And I wanted to ask, were there times when you were in school, even as a uh, you know white kid, bringing a lunch, or other white kids bringing lunches, or ethnic kids bringing lunches, that you notice this sort of thing going on?
Maybe. I don't think anywhere to the extent is what you're talking about, in current situation. I think maybe not so much shaming, but perhaps there was, judgment. So, for example, kids, if they had brought like a peanut butter sandwich every single day or something like that, or sort of a meager lunch.
So you said butter sandwich
Butter
earlier.
or peanut
We were
butter. It's like
talking,
a plain, boring lunch.
yeah,
Some kids would sort of snicker.
lots of kids brought peanut butter
No, but
sandwiches.
like let's say if it was like a small lunch or something, and if it was on a repeated basis, some kids would be like, the whole teasing aspect, like, oh, so and so's poor or something like that.
That's terrible.
Yeah, there was just the immatureness of elementary school kids that would do stuff like that.
Do you think it's still as bad now, that kind of stuff?
Probably, yeah.
I'd like to hope
I have
no.
no idea. I don't know. I should ask. I should ask
I
my son if anything like that goes on. But yeah, like back in, well, from what I recall from my school days, yeah, I don't know if there was any shaming from any kind of like ethnic foods or any kind of weird lunches that people brought. I don't remember that.
I do.
Oh, you do? Okay.
Yeah, so my mother, I loved, like, so my mother's Eastern European, and she would sometimes pack a lunch with like liverwurst in it,
All right.
the spread. And I loved that when I was a kid. And I remember bringing it to school once, and someone's like, "Oh, that's disgusting. That's liverwurst or liver, and it smells." And I was like, totally like, I felt shamed, and I loved it. I wanted to eat it, but I told my mom I didn't want it anymore because I didn't like it, and
Huh.
so she stopped making it. But sometimes it occasionally would show up, and I would hide the sandwich and I wouldn't eat it.
Hmm. That's kind of sad.
It is.
Yeah. Do you still eat liverwurst to this day?
No, but I would if it was there. It's just that things like that aren't really a sandwich that I would go out of my way to. I mean, actually, no, that's not true. I have had liverwurst. Like sometimes you'll see it on on a cheese plate or something like at a party or whatever.
Hmm.
I very rarely, but occasionally I'll put it on a cracker or something.
Yeah.
But I like it. I think it's good. Yeah.
Hmm. All right. Well, hopefully there's no shaming over liverwurst or any other,
Yeah. I
smelly
bring it up
foods.
because it really resonated for me, and I can
Mhm.
only imagine that certain, like, I remember that kind of stuff as a kid, that kind of stuff, and those are the things that really can affect kids. They can go home and be like concerned and
Mhm.
worried and thinking about that, and then how do they tell their parents, who in this case, for say an ethnic family, who that's what the parents know how to make, then, and they loved it as a kid, and suddenly they're being pushed into this environment where that thing is being, something that's the subject of ridicule. It's awful.
Yeah. Kids can be real jerks, right?
They can.
Yeah.
They can, and I am going to ask my son about that
Yeah.
because that really hit home for me when I heard that.
Hmm. Yeah, I'm going to ask my son as well if what goes on. Yeah, I'd be interested to know if that's still going on.
The Colorado State Fair had a competition for artwork, and there was the winner was an AI generated artwork. And my question for you is, in the day now that AI is becoming a big deal, is AI generated artwork like bad? And I guess the one question is, should it win competitions if it's AI generated? But then the second part of that is it bad that there's such a thing as AI generated artwork?
So my thoughts on that. Okay, it's interesting that we are at the point where there is AI generated artwork because I wasn't really aware that that has become a thing now. But yeah, it's natural to realize that that is where we are at based on the advancements of AI technology. So yeah, in terms of AI work getting accolades and winning awards, that should be in a separate category to itself. You can't compare it to a regular human artist, I suppose. So no, it should not be getting awards when compared to other pieces of artwork because it's completely different. You can't compare, an artist who has studied their entire life and practiced their craft and their skill, and to be compared against, artificial intelligence and lose out on an award. No, I don't think that's right.
Some people, there's some Twitter on this saying that things like someone doing this is like letting a robot participate in the Olympics.
Yeah, it kind of is. Yeah, I would agree with that. It's not that far off from that kind of a statement.
Another comment: imagine spending upon hours on a piece of work to proudly present it for a competition and being beaten by somebody who pressed generate on a screen.
Yeah, exactly. Well, as an artist, yeah, I'd be pissed off if I lost out an award to AI generated artwork.
The other thing going on out there, and we don't have time for it now, is there's a lot of AI generated news articles and blogs. A lot of this stuff is created by AI that just cobbles a whole bunch of information. I don't know if you've ever read any articles where you can tell something's not quite right about this article. It's cobbled together in a strange, almost like computerized way
Mm-hmm.
that it's not, you can tell it's just not read by somebody or written by somebody real.
Yeah, I've sensed that as well. And hey, that could explain the our who effing cares as well. The articles that we
Yeah,
talk about on that.
very good point. Very
Yeah.
good point.
If it's a slow news story, get the AI generated news anchor to come up with the stories on that.
All right, so we're both kind of stretched for time today, so we got to push on. We're moving into what we're watching. So you have something, you mentioned a documentary that you're watching.
Yeah, I have finished watching it, and it was really interesting. a three-part documentary on Netflix called Trainwreck Woodstock 99.
Oh, yes.
I don't know if you've watched this before.
I watched about half of the episode.
Okay. So, yeah, there's 3 1-hour episodes.
Is it that long?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah,
Jesus. I mean, I got enough information in the first 40 minutes to say, yeah, okay, that
yeah.
was terrible.
No, but
This was in 1999, you said?
yeah, 1999 Woodstock Festival, which was
Yeah.
done as a recreation of the Woodstock back in 1969, the 30th anniversary. Yeah, as I said, it was just under 3 hours, I suppose, but it kept my interest all the way through. So the premise of this was that, Woodstock 99 was sort of a recreation. And man, this thing was littered with so many problems, so much mismanagement. We could probably do an entire episode just discussing this documentary.
Could review it.
Yeah, we could
We
do.
haven't done one of those in a
No,
while.
I was just going to say we haven't done, a documentary review in geez, it's probably over a year now. So yeah, this would be a good candidate to do it. So I'm not going to go too much into detail as to the content of it, but yeah, I just want to mention that, yeah, this was really interesting. It was sort of a what not to do kind of scenario in terms of, the organization and the composition of how this music festival was created.
What would you say in like a sentence or two was the what not to do with this whole event?
I don't know if it can be summed up that way.
Like, was it
it was,
security?
yeah,
Was
it
it
was sort of everything.
logistics?
Yeah, it was mismanagement. It was poorly planned, bad venue. There was a lot of factors that went into it. We talked before about price gouging. That was one of the things where you were not allowed to bring water into the concert venue. So people had to
Yeah, I
purchase
saw that.
water, from the concessions, and they were like gouging people. I think at one point they were charging like $10 for a bottle of water or something like that.
Yeah. That caused a lot of problems.
The venue was like an abandoned Air Force base. So pretty much it was on like a runway landing strip. It was in the middle of
tarmac.
It was
all
it was
asphalt.
yeah, it was on a tarmac, and it was like ridiculously hot weather. It was just one of those things where it's sort of like the perfect storm, where people just they're tired of being price gouged. It was just so many other factors, and as I said, I could go into far more detail, but we probably don't have the time to do that. But
No, and we want to leave some.
we can
People watch it if they want.
Exactly. I want people to watch it, but yeah, it's just really interesting. Something that was that large of a scale as to how poorly it was run. And it was
Netflix.
Yeah, Netflix
Or Prime or Netflix.
Yeah, like the organizers just kind of had their head in the sand and just took no responsibility for the end outcome. Pretty much on the last day, it ended up the concert. There was a riot and like
Yeah, it looks
looting and
like,
trashing. Like it was a terrible terrible
The
experience.
picture on the cover looks like a apocalypse. Like,
Yeah, it was pretty much a war zone when they cleaned up the concert on the Monday
Brutal.
morning. But either way, it was a great watch. Like watch it for sure, because it was quite fascinating, and it was really well presented as well. A lot of differing opinions and in interviews. So yeah, highly recommend it.
Well, for me, what I'm watching is I kind of stumbled into it because I had heard some people mention that they were watching it. Was the Dahmer Netflix Dahmer Monster, I think it's called.
Yeah, I mentioned that last time, the Dahmer miniseries.
Yeah, so I started. I think it's 9 episodes or 10 episodes.
10, yeah.
10, yeah, and I started watching it, and I'll keep this brief. I mean, I thought. I mean, we lived through it to the extent that it was news when I was, I think, 17 or 18. I do remember the story coming up and the horrible details of it. It is, I think, pretty well done. It's creepy. They took a like I do find with true stories, I'll go and check what the real story is versus what they've portrayed, and there are some things that they have um, adjusted, like the neighbor, for instance, who lives next door and can smell the dead body smell or whatever. She didn't actually live next door. She lived in a different building. So I was like, they took some liberties with that. Apparently the families are really upset about the fact that they made this documentary, or it's not even a documentary. It's a series. So a lot of families were upset, but I did find it interesting just to find out, a little bit more about the story. And I've been reading up a lot on it. So yeah, Dahmer monster. If you're got the stomach for it, it's pretty well done.
Yeah, like I mentioned before, we watched a few episodes, and we're still only a few episodes in. It's heavy subject matter. Like you really gotta, amp yourself up for sitting down to watch that. It's not a light topic. So yeah, we'll get through it eventually, but it could take a while.
So I before we go, I did want to share one quick positive thing that came out of our previous episode, and that was that one of our listeners heard your segment about the colonoscopy.
Okay.
And after hearing some of what your experiences were with it, and that it was relatively positive and harmless, he had been very nervous about scheduling this appointment. And because of what you said on the episode, he is now ready to go for his colonoscopy.
Well, that's awesome. I'm glad to hear that. Yeah, and that's why I wanted to talk about it, is because, yeah, I as you recall from the previous episode, I had built it up in my head as something that, oh man, I'm so nervous to get this done, and something that,
rightly so.
Yeah, and rightly so. I was certainly not looking forward to this, but it was not, as mentioned before, it was nowhere near as bad the experience as I thought it was going to be. So yeah, if somebody out there, if even if, as I said, one person books their colonoscopy appointment, then I'm glad to hear that. I'm glad I was able to help out that way.
Yeah, and one of the comments he made was that he didn't realize that you got put under, like that you could be put under, and that he says they should tell people, somehow communicate that. I know that was his specific case, but I think a lot of people are nervous about it because they think they're awake during the experience. Now, I was in Japan awake during mine, which I think had some positives to it, but it was also a little odd and awkward at the same time. But he said that had he known all along that you would be put under for it, he would have booked his appointment a long time ago.
Now, could you have asked to be put under? Like, what were you given the option, or was something get lost in translation?
No, they didn't give me the option. They didn't give me the option. So yes, good news story. It's exactly right. The reason why we like to talk about some of these more difficult topics, like health topics, is so that it demystifies some of this stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. Yeah. Like, as I said, this is a podcast that it's two guys talking, and if we can tackle some interesting or difficult subject matters and break down some myths and misconceptions, and we're glad to do that.
So a couple final thoughts before we wrap. My wife and I were listening to the last episode we did, which was a long episode.
Yeah, it was, yeah.
And, you and I talked about this earlier, that when we set out to make an episode, it's difficult to split them up after if they get too long, because the bridging together of it is a little difficult. If you've got, say, 90 minutes of material and you want to split it in half, well, there has to be an intro and a close to each episode, and otherwise it becomes a bit,
it would break up the flow. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So I did want to share a couple comments she made. She said, you guys do venture into the realm of grumpy old men quite a bit. And you didn't really say don't do it, but she just says you guys kind of come off as grumpy old men. So for whatever that's worth, I partly said, yeah, well, maybe that's why people tune in, is to listen to a couple of grumpy oldish men.
Yeah.
We're just about 50, right? Me, I'm 50. You're getting there.
Wait till we get older. It'll be even grumpier.
Yeah. Can you imagine? Some people have said I'm a bit of a grumpy old man since I was like 30. So what happens when we're like actually, 75 or 80?
Yeah.
But she did say that that was just a comment, and that sometimes we go on a little bit too long on our topics.
Okay, no,
which you noted
yeah,
too.
I appreciate that, and that's why doing like 5 minute topics, I think, is a great idea. And
Did you listen to the last episode?
I've listened to parts of it. I haven't listened all the way through because yeah,
Too
it was
long?
an hour and a half, so it takes a while to find the right opportunity to listen to an hour and a half episode. But yes,
But for those who want long rambling listens, then just tune into the last
yeah,
episode.
yeah. No, but hey, we tackled a lot of different subjects. So if we had talked about one thing for a full hour and a half, then I could picture people tuning out. But we covered a lot of stuff. So I hope people were entertained. And even today's episode, I hope people are entertained with this. Hopefully we didn't come across as being too grumpy. If we are being too grumpy, please let us know. Like, we appreciate the feedback, and we like to hear, we think we're amazing in our own minds, but it's all up to our listeners to let us know how we're doing, and feedback and areas of improvement. So, hey, we appreciate the comments.
Well, as a reminder, people can email us at wetalkedaboutthis99@gmail.com. We do like to receive feedback, and if you have some topic ideas you want us to share, please send those in, and we'll be happy to raise them. And as well, if you're someone out there who really wants to be on the show, we have had a few of our listeners come on the show, so that's also an option for people if they're interested. The audition is fairly painless, right?
Yeah, not as painless as a colonoscopy, but it's not too bad.